Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. You're listening to PHLY Flyers. That's right, PHLY. My name is Bill Matz. Woo! I am your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me after this 65-plus minute 1-0 victory for the Flyers on Long Island is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. How about it, Chuck? We have our first PHLY watch party here at the New Wave. Have these
there we go.
Wonderful listeners, fans joining us, and the Flyers treat us to some free hockey.
A lot of hockey.
A lot of hockey. We get 60 minutes of regulation, no goals. 5 minutes of 3-on-3, no goal. Tyson Forster wins it in a 1-for-3 shootout effort.
Overtime of the shootout, too. We got past the initial 3.
It got through the initial 3, and we get all the way to the Flyers' 4th attempt, and they net one. I don't even know where to begin with this game.
I guess someone said on Twitter, I retweeted them, that this was the most Flyers-Islanders game to ever be Flyers-Islanders.
I guess they had, 40 shots on goal to the Isles' 20. I guess the only thing that would have made it the most possible Flyers-Islanders is the Isles win.
That's fair.
So the Flyers actually do it, and I think they came in their last 8 on Long Island. They were 0-6-2.
0-6-2, that sounds right.
And they came in, they finally win one. Takes a lot of extra time, but I won't say the Flyers are actually better than many teams in this league. They are considerably better than the Islanders. Yeah. I think we saw them Wednesday. We saw them tonight.
Yeah.
We can draw that conclusion at least.
Yeah, and we didn't go into the year thinking for sure they would be better than the Islanders. You know, I think we thought they were going to be in that same realm as the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're very clearly better than the Columbus Blue Jackets. We saw that on Sunday. But the Islanders were a team that went into the year thinking they could be, and they still probably do think they can be, a bubble playoff team. They made the playoffs last year. They think they can do it again. Over these 2 games, both road games, they went onto the island and outplayed them in 2 consecutive games. Now, obviously, they got the loss on Wednesday, but I'd say on the whole, the Flyers got the better of play in that game. And then tonight, I thought they got the better of play significantly.
And we saw a familiar pattern. They didn't come out all that strong. Shots were at 1.60. They then took 2 away from the Islanders. But for the first 5 or so minutes, this game was, all right, we thought we had him Wednesday, and now this looks... But as soon as, that 7 or 8 minute mark hit, the Flyers took over, and they really never relinquished. At no point... Listen, Sam Ersson played a great game, and I want to talk about him in a minute, but... He wasn't tested a ton.
True.
They did have some great chances. He made some huge saves.
Especially in overtime.
Throughout regulation, especially in overtime in the shootout. But this Flyers team, as bad as we thought the actual 6 to 8 defensemen were going to be, they are excellent defensively.
Yeah.
They gave up 20 shots on goal. In 65 minutes, they basically gave up a shot every 3 minutes in this game. They're doing a ton of work defensively to keep their goalies clean, and you saw the benefit tonight.
I thought it was a real bounce-back game. Team defense, not just the defense core, but team defense. Because going back to the Black Friday game against the Rangers, the thing that stuck out to me in that game was just how many odd-man rushes they gave up. I tracked them at 7 through 2 periods, which is more than they usually give up over the course of a week. They've been real good this year at avoiding odd-man rushes, and against the Rangers, they fell back into bad habits. They were the pinches were maybe a little bit too aggressive, but the thing that John Tortorella was most angry about was the forwards weren't tracking back. They weren't back-checking hard enough to take the pressure off the defenseman and basically make it worth the defenseman's while to pinch. Tonight, I didn't think they avoided pinching. I didn't think they played a conservative game, which Tortorella does not want them to play. It's just that this time, when the defenseman pinched, when Travis Sanheim took risks, when Cam York took risks, when Sean Walker took risks, the forwards were back, and the forwards protected them, and that's how you ended up through a game. I mean, I'm sure they gave up a couple odd man rushes, but I can't remember any off the top of my head, any major ones aside from overtime, which like that whole overtime session is basically an odd man rush.
It's an odd man rush.
Yeah.
That's what you play for.
But in 60 minutes, I didn't think they gave up that many, and yeah, Ersson made a few big saves. You know, he made a couple really good saves, I thought, with the glove. I thought he was really feeling it with the glove tonight. But on the whole, the Flyers made his job, I wouldn't say easy, but manageable. They made his job manageable, and that's a credit to the team defense.
They played the way you're supposed to play in front of a backup goalie.
Yes.
You need to have that concerted effort to... Listen, it's not our starter. We all might think Sam Ersson has this high ceiling and maybe he's going to be this team's starter one day. Who the hell knows? But when the backup is in, you shouldn't give up 30 shots.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, that's a recipe to lose. And tonight they played this way. I will say, team defense definitely a bounce back, but they're... Whether it's just level of the team, but if you're just looking individually, team speed... Yeah, you're going to give up more odd man rushes to the Rangers than you do the Islanders.
That
the
is true.
Islanders
That's very
are a
true.
slow team.
Yeah.
If they get an odd man rush, they might be like, let's hold up.
Yeah.
Let's just wait for everyone.
It's basically just Barzell,
Yes.
and then Nelson can skate. But beyond those two, it's a lot of plotters.
But I do now want to talk about the goaltender, Sam Ersson, because he was when he was tested,
Yes.
excellent tonight. I mean, the shootout, overtime, all throughout, when he did have chances against, he came up huge. I have been of the belief all season that we know at least a baseline of what we have in Carter Hart.
Yeah.
But in terms of future going forward, there's always the black cloud looming, but just his contract ends after this season.
Right.
Do you want to give him 8 years? I don't know. Just if this rebuild's going to go on 4 more, what's the point of that? Like, if you can get a ton for him, there is uncertainty in terms of who is going to be the Flyers goaltender when this team is competing to go on playoff runs again. I think it would behoove them to give Ersson more time in net, not to treat Carter Hart like, oh, well, he's got to be the number one. He's got to play 60-plus games. I don't see it that way for a number of reasons. One, why? Like, why? If you only have so many why waste? Maybe Hart does become a 65-game starter. Why now?
Right.
What is the point of that?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, it's like using a running back. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna win 2 games this year. Let's use this rookie running back 150 times.
Let's give him 400 carries on a bad team.
What is the point of this? Like, I'm looking at Samuel Ersson, and as he's played more, he has played better.
Yes.
Why not play him more?
Yeah, I'm really happy for him, honestly. Like, he's a good kid. He obviously got off to an awful start this year. I think in large part that was because he's still trying to get a handle on being a backup. And the fact that as a backup, you don't play every night. At the start of the year, he didn't play for like 3 weeks, came in, was terrible. And it honestly, and maybe it shouldn't anger me as much as it does, but it annoyed me how many people on social media after like 2 bad Sam Ersson games were ready to be like, this guy's trash. He's not an NHL goalie. Get rid of him. I know when it comes to evaluating goalies, there's a lot of recency bias, but I'm really happy that he's showing that he's a good, young, talented goalie. And you raise an interesting point about the idea of why not play him more. I think in the beginning of the year, it was kind of a chicken and egg thing where you want to play him more, but he's got to earn the playing time. But in order to earn the playing time, you got to play him more.
What's he supposed to be great in practice?
Exactly.
Like, who's shooting on him in practice?
Yeah.
He better be great.
So it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting because now you're in a situation where he just had a 65-minute shutout and then shut out the team in the shootout too. Like, this is as high difficulty of a shutout victory as you're going to get. He's earned more games, and I think it helps him to play more games because I think he's still getting the hang of playing once every 2 weeks. I think you want to play him more, and I think after this game, he's earned more starts. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that Carter Hart should turn into the backup.
No,
Carter Hart
no.
should still get more starts. But Sam Ersson is a goalie that the organization is very high on. And now he's a goalie that fans are going to be more high on because he's actually playing well when they watch
him do
it.
Yeah. And that's Like, first of all, I love well, you got to get rid of. Who do they have that is an NHL goalie?
Yeah.
Like, it's not Cal Peterson, because have you seen him play?
Exactly.
And it's not Felix Sandstrom, because we have seen him play.
Yeah.
Like, who was it going to be? But do you foresee, I think it should be more of a, if not 50-50, a 1A, 1B, 55-45 sort of split. Do you foresee that actually happening, or is that a fan's pipe dream?
I think it's more of a fan's pipe dream because I do believe that Tortorella views Hart as his guy. He trusts Carter Hart. And look, Carter Hart's had a pretty darn good year so far.
He's been very good.
He's been good. So it's not like he's relinquished any of his usual workload by his quality of play. He's been good. It's just that now Ersson is starting to also play really well. And this was the exclamation point game where now you can all point to it and say, see, he's a really good goalie. Maybe he should get more starts. To me, it's maybe like you got to get him in one game a week. Like, that's the bare minimum. He deserves at least one game a week. If you play 4 games, maybe he only plays one of those games. If you play 2 games, he still gets one of those games. Like, don't have him sit for a long time, because he's showing that if you play him fairly regularly, he's a pretty darn good NHL goalie.
Yeah, I want to see more of him, because we talk so much about the skaters and finding out what you have, and like it's so much a part of the Morgan Frost discourse.
Right.
Like, well, how do you find out what he is? Like, and we talked about it with Igor Zamula, like not playing well, but if there was ever a time, now's the time to get him in.
Yeah.
Sam Ersson, find out, like, is his ceiling decent backup? Can he be a tandem guy on a good team? Will he ever be a 1A?
Yeah.
Let's find out what his ceiling really is. This is the perfect year for it. Now, does that go along with maybe what Carter Hart wants to see happen? Like, how much do you think it's like, well, contract year for Carter, and not that he's calling the shots, but it's like we want to keep who we believe our franchise goalie happy. Like, how much do you think that weighs into their decision making?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. I think there's an element where you know you're coming up on a contract negotiation, and you maybe still think at this point that Carter Hart is the future. Because look, the Flyers, while I still am not sold on them as a playoff team this year, they are very clearly better than we anticipated, which means that it might not take as long for them to be a playoff team, and they might look at it as, hey, we have at least a good starting 25-year-old goalie. If it's only going to take us 2 more years to be a playoff team rather than 5 or 6, which we thought might be the case going into the season, if the rebuild was going to take forever, suddenly maybe you don't want to lose Carter Hart. It's the same thing of like not wanting to trade Travis Konechny, because you think that it might make sense to re-sign Travis Konechny if this team is only 2 years away rather than 5 years away. So I do think there's probably an element of you want to keep him happy. You don't want him to start thinking he wants to go elsewhere because you're marginalizing him in favor of Sam Ersson, because if you do that, you are kind of sending the message to Carter Hart that you are thinking about life past Carter Hart. So I think that's part of it, but I think a lot of it is honestly that John Tortorella just trusts Carter Hart. He trusts him as a goalie. He wants to use him a lot.
I'm trying to think of Tortorella's previous stops, and like Tampa, all right, yeah, you had Hobby Bolin. Like, I think of the Rangers, obviously Lundqvist, Columbus, obviously Bobrovsky. Like, those are like established number 1 dudes, so it makes sense to kind of just ride one guy.
Yes.
Do you think if he's building a team, it's we have a clear, we have our number 1 dude and then a backup who just kind of plays when the number 1 can't? Like, do you think that's part of his team building philosophy, that you have an obvious 1 and 2?
It's an interesting question because, look, I think most coaches, not all, because there are a few that are looking at it differently, most coaches just feel more comfortable with a clear-cut number 1. like Boston Bruins are a team that's kind of changing the script where they have two, and like they've asked Montgomery, would you are you still willing to be a tandem in the playoffs? And he's like, absolutely. That's the way we play. We have two great goalies. We want to use them.
Had he gone with that, they may not have flamed out in the first round.
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
But my point is that I think Tortorella, if you put a gun to his head, would say he would rather have a clear one. Now, if you ask the Flyers front office, they might have a different opinion because they might say, you know what? Why not have two really good goalies, and why not have one play 55 games and one play 35 games, and then be able to trade off if possible, or maybe do 45-35, like make it even closer.
I guess in my mind, the drawback is even if you go tandem regular season, as close to 50-50 as you can go, teams still want. Every coach basically wants, we have one guy in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
We go with one guy.
Not every coach, but the vast majority.
Every coach I have ever
Fair.
seen, I'm sure it's possible that they exist. I have never seen them, though.
Fair.
And, I mean, the Flyers have never had one, let alone two. So it's not like in this town we can be like, well, remember that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, they went with, 9 goalies in 2011.
Yeah.
And it was because they all sucked.
Yeah. And then in the 2010 run, they were bouncing between Leighton and Bush because the other guy kept getting hurt.
One kept getting hurt, and then the other would have to come back, and then the other would get hurt, and that's just the way it would go.
Exactly.
Speaking of guys returning from injuries, excellent segue, Bill.
Love that.
Rasmus Ristolainen, he made his return tonight, and we both kind of said, listen, we watched Mark Stahl come back, first, start the season and then come back from injury. It was a little rough. I can't imagine a guy who missed first 20 games is going to look sharp in his start, but wasn't horrible.
I thought he looked fine. I thought Risto, honestly, I was expecting dumpster fire disaster Risto, and that isn't because I think poorly of Risto anymore. If the last year's version of Risto is the Risto we get, he's a perfectly fine number 4, number 5 defenseman. That works. But I was expecting, given the fact this was his first game, given the fact that it's against a pretty heavy forechecking team in the Isles, I was expecting him to struggle. He pretty much looked fine. I don't think he was dominant. I don't think he was exceptional. But
is he ever those things?
Fair. But my point is, for the first game back, after missing, a month and a half, I thought he looked like normal Ristolainen, which is a good sign.
They're replaying the shootout right next to me, and I keep peeking up. And from about the second period on, I'm just thinking, all right, 0-0 shootout, here we go. But we actually got it. It's something that comes up now and then because I am one of the few remaining shootout fans. I'm not saying this is the ideal way to end a game.
Right.
That was dramatic. No,
it was fun. We had our crowd here for the watch party. We're all outside watching it, and it was getting pretty intense. We were enjoying it. It was a fun time.
It was a good time. In this game, despite it being the Islanders, it was a fairly entertaining game, mostly because the Flyers just absolutely dominated. Is this when you see them play this way? Do you just think to yourself, there is something else there to this team? Or is it, the Islanders never have the puck. That's just kind of their game. We're going to punt, and you're going to have to go the length of the ice.
Yeah.
And that's basically every possession. Do you think this team's better? I know we've already had the conversation. This team is way better than we thought. Better than we thought is not dumpster fire.
Yes, exactly.
How likely do you believe the playoffs to be?
I still do not think they're likely, but I do think they are a possibility, which is way higher than I would have given it back in September, even back in early October. Look, I think the Islanders have a chance of making the playoffs, even though they're off to a good start.
Look at what they do in every game.
Yeah.
They make every game a coin flip, and it might come up heads more than you expect.
But my point is that if I believe, and I do, if I believe that the Islanders have a chance of making the playoffs, I have to then also believe the Flyers have a chance of making the playoffs, because I believe the Flyers are better than the Islanders.
I mean, it's pretty clear after the last 2 games we watched them play. They have struggled with the Islanders in the past. It's not as if they just went into Long Island and blew them out. They lost on Wednesday, and they needed 65 plus 4 shootout shooters to go in and actually get a victory for the first time in 2 years on Long Island. But yeah, I think there might be a little something extra to this team. I do want to see what they do when teams kind of ramp it up after Christmas, after the roster freeze and all that, and then maybe like there's just levels to the season. Like post All-Star break is another, like after Christmas, then you go there. I do want to see if this is the Flyers right now, and every other team is kind of like, yeah, but then I want to see how that plays out. Does that make sense?
It does. And you know, you mentioned a little something extra. You mentioned the looming Christmas holiday. So what I want to say is if you are looking for a little something extra for Christmas, maybe check out the PHLY Locker, our Black Friday Cyber Weekend sales.
Is Charlie doing a read?
I just might be doing a read. I just might be trying out a read. Check that out. We have a lot of new Eagles merch in particular. Obviously, the Eagles, I think the vast majority of Flyers fans are also diehard Eagles fans.
I would guess.
Got a lot of really good Eagles merch, brand new. Check that out. Again, it's PHLYlocker.com, 25% off. And if you spend $75 on merch, on shirts, on everything we've got, you get a $15 gift card in addition to spend even more money on our stuff.
It's absolutely genius. Like you get to 15 after. I think that's very smart. You got to come back now. It's like Dave & Buster's. Your money's already tied up. You got to come back.
Exactly.
I do love the Fletcher Cox wearing the Philly Bias shirt.
That's good.
And it's a picture of him. I want to get a shirt made that's me wearing that shirt with a picture of me and then wear it. I think that will be Inception level PHLY stuff.
I love it. I love it.
Maybe I can get someone to make that for me.
Yeah.
Thinking about couple of lineup changes we saw tonight. Morgan Frost back in,
yeah,
and he's the third shooter in the shootout. I wasn't especially impressed with Frost tonight, but I guess I can't say I was especially impressed with many. Did you have any impressions of Morgan and his long-awaited return to the lineup once again?
Yeah, I thought he was fine. I didn't think he did anything awful. I didn't think he had a bad game. However, it's abundantly clear that he needs to be more than fine to stay in the lineup because, as we saw, he scores a bunch of points, then has one game where he doesn't end up a score sheet and is immediately scratched. So while I believe that he didn't do anything wrong, it's clear that under this coach, he needs to be more than just okay to keep the spot. I don't think he was more than just okay. It's funny, I would have loved it. Not loved it because I feel bad for the kid, but if he would have scored the shootout game winner and then immediately got scratched the next game.
No, he was in a position where, like, he's third, and, all right, you're in position to win it. You have walk-off on your stick.
Yeah.
I feel like this was, if you win it, you get to play next game.
Oh, God.
If you don't, you don't. If they don't, they don't. I very much got that impression. This is, and I've said this basically every time we've talked about Morgan Frost for the last 2 weeks. This is not going to end until he's traded, right? Like the Morgan Frost thing,
the saga,
whatever it is, like this saga, whatever it is that the coach doesn't like about him, whatever it is that keeps him from being a regular in this lineup, it doesn't end until he's playing for like Toronto or something, right?
Yeah, it's just, it would have to take him going on a ridiculous offensive scoring heater for him to. It would either take that or a bunch of guys getting hurt where like they have no choice but to play him every night. Because look, Bobby Brink was the guy who gave way for Frost tonight. They've already made it clear by bringing Bobby Brink back in
after a win
in the midst of a winning streak when they just took down the defending Stanley Cup champions.
And not by accident, they played great.
Yeah, they played great in that game. They've made it abundantly clear that, like, Bobby Brink is going to play. He's important, and he's going to play, and we're going to find ways to get him in. And it's clear that they don't view Morgan Frost anywhere near of the same level of importance. So, to me, like, yeah, Brink came out tonight. I don't think Brink is sitting more than one more game. He's coming back in.
I'd be surprised.
And it's very clear to me that when John Tortorella has to make a lineup decision, his first instinct is scratch Morgan Frost. That's his initial solution to every lineup problem. Scratch Morgan Frost.
It is the go-to move. Like, that is the first move. Okay, and let me look at, well, obviously Frost is out, and okay, we're set.
Yeah, there we go.
And we're good. Solved. Carter, you good? Carter's good, so he's the goalie, and I have made all the decisions we need to make.
I do feel, it's funny because, like, I am still not sold on Morgan Frost as part of the future, but I feel really bad for him because I don't think he's done anything wrong here. He just happened to not be a favorite of the coach, who is John Tortorella, and it's crazy.
Like, I have made a point over the last week or so to just be like, listen, it don't matter if he's good or not. It's not happening here, so it doesn't matter. Like, nothing matters.
Right.
But I do feel bad. While my top priority is I want to see the Flyers be great again, I do feel bad about not only is it not going to happen here for him, he has very little opportunity to prove himself to the team that signs him to the next contract.
Exactly. And you know what? You never know. Like, I look at somebody as, like, the best case scenario, assuming that it doesn't work in Philly, which it doesn't look like it's going to. I mean, the best case scenario for him would be something like Anthony Duclair, where, like, you know, he's a guy where a couple coaches don't like him. They think he doesn't play the kind of two-way game. And then what happens? He ends up in Florida and suddenly is a 60-point guy. I could see that happening to Morgan Frost in the right situation.
End up on a team where it's like, yeah, none of us defend.
Yeah, it's fine. It's all good.
We have Barkov, and that's it.
Ekblad does some defense.
They have defensemen, yes. Charlie, what else really stuck out to you in this one? Like, I'm just thinking the overall, the bounce back of the team defense after the Rangers game. But really, this has been the story of their season. They have been excellent. I'm not pointing to, like, oh, well, the blue line is so much better than we thought. It's fine. But the team commitment to defense and the ability to actually execute what the coach wants from them this year as opposed to last year, that stark leap that more so than any individual outside of Sanheim, who's just been a revelation.
Right.
Like, the team seems to have taken a much bigger leap than any one individual. That is what has stuck out to me throughout this, and we saw it again on display tonight. I mean, they play a 65. Did they give up 25 shots tonight? I don't think they did.
Something like that, yeah.
I think it was like 22. What stuck out to you in this one, like, that absolutely needs highlighting?
Well, I thought one interesting sort of subplot, minor story that could be a bigger story down the road was the fact that while they shook up the lineup to get Morgan Frost back in, they moved Noah Cates over to wing. And I thought Noah Cates, well, look, nobody scored aside from Tyson Forrester in the shootout. No one had a goal.
Yeah.
No one had a goal. I thought Noah Cates looked good on the wing. I thought his forechecking was more apparent being on the wing versus being at center. I thought that whole line, him and Farabee and Paling, like, Paling is a limited guy. There were a lot of times where he'd skate really fast, get the puck into the zone, and then have no idea what to do with it after.
We had some fun watching Paling tonight.
But I thought that line created a lot. I thought they had a lot of offensive zone time, and I thought both Cates and Farabee looked good. So maybe this is... Look, Noah Cates has been disappointing so far this year, particularly offensively. Maybe giving him a chance on the wing, which was where he originally entered the NHL. His natural position. Maybe that's a way to get the offense going with him. Maybe.
We have talked about the potential logjam. I mean, it's funny to talk about a logjam at center for a team that has, like, no centers.
Right.
But we have talked about that issue popping up once Cutter Gauthier gets here, which we hope is in the spring. This season, we're hoping he comes after his college season ends.
Right.
Is this... maybe, not to bring it back to Morgan Frost, an opening for him now, at least until Gauthier gets here. Like, is Cates, do you think, maybe just going to be a tweener? Like, depending on the lineup, he's going to go back and forth? Or do you see maybe, all right, the center thing, it ain't working. He's going to be on the wing, and maybe that pushes someone else out of the lineup rather than Morgan Frost?
It's hard for me to. I don't think it's going to have much of an impact on Morgan Frost because I think Morgan Frost's situation is Morgan Frost. It's basically just that John Tortorella isn't sold on him. Now, if Noah Cates is a winger, that does leave you, it leaves you with less options down the middle. Maybe that makes Scott Lawton a full-time center. Maybe that's the answer there. Clearly, they're giving Ryan Poehling a long look. Ryan Poehling, to me, is a fourth-line center, and that's all he will ever be. But they want to see if he can be more. They're giving him a long look further up the lineup. Noah Cates, to me, I think he can be a good center. What I saw last year, I believe he can be a good bottom six center. But I think he can be a better offensive player on the wing. I think he can be a more overall impactful player on the wing. So it was exciting to me to see them give him a shot there, and I'm curious to see if it lasts.
More impactful overall on the wing. I guess if he gives you that solid two-way play still, even if he's not a center, but scores considerably more because he's on a line, you would think, with more talent, maybe a center that can get him the puck. I can see that. I can see that playing out that way. Back to the blue line, I'm starting to think Zamula ain't going to be a part of this thing.
Really?
Like,
he sat out again tonight.
Sits out tonight, and I liked him since they brought him in. I thought his first preseason, he stands out. He's had a little bit of trouble standing out lately, and now they notch a win without him in the lineup. Ristolainen's back. Stahl, shaking off some of the rust. I think it might be hard for him to get back in the lineup. How committed do you think they are to making sure he gets his time?
Well, I guess we'll see. Now we're going to see because now you've got Stahl and Ristolainen back. What I will say is that they had opportunities to scratch him over this most recent stretch. Louis Belpedio was in the lineup. They could have found a way to get Zamula out of the lineup, and they kept throwing him out there, even after some real bad games. That game where he got benched for the entire third period against Carolina, I thought for sure he was not playing the next game. They threw him right back out there. So the circumstantial evidence so far does imply they want to give him a look. The problem now, though, as you mentioned, is that now there's just more of a logjam. Risto's back. You presumably think Risto is a nightly guy. So that pretty much just leaves Sealer, who is in your top four and doing pretty well in your top four with Sean Walker, who I thought had another really good game tonight. And then you have Mark Stahl. And the question then becomes, how often are you willing to scratch Mark Stahl to get Igor Zamula in? Now, John Tortorella echoed last week that Mark Stahl ain't going to play every game. So he's continuing to say that Mark Stahl ain't going to play every game. Mark Stahl was healthy last weekend. He didn't get into either of the games. So maybe Mark Stahl will be a rotational guy. But again, it's one of those we'll believe it when we see it types of things, given the fact that Mark Stahl is that classic veteran presence type guy. And honestly, with Risto tonight, I thought he was fine. He had a couple good plays. He wasn't bad. He didn't play so bad that he earned a benching for Igor Zamula. It wouldn't shock me at all if next game him and Risto are right back out there on the third pair again, and Zamula's taking another seat.
We are right around the quarter point of the season. I don't want to say quarter pole because we learned tonight that the quarter pole actually means three quarters have gone by and there's only a quarter left.
Wasn't aware of that. It was a little horse racing.
Did not know
horse
this.
Racing tidbit.
I don't know if I knew that was a horse reference until tonight.
Okay. You learned a lot then.
Yeah, I did. We are at about the quarter point of the season, though. The team is considerably better than we thought they would be 2 months ago. Who would you label as this team's MVP to this point?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. I mean, there's a couple obvious options. Like Travis Sanheim is an obvious option just because of the leap and how he's exceeded expectations.
He plays half the game, and they win a lot more than I thought they would.
You could make a case. The one thing I'll say about Sanheim that maybe gives me a little bit of pause is that despite the fact that he's very much past the eye test and the analytics are fantastic, he has been outscored at 5-on-5 when he's been on the ice. Now, I don't pin a lot of that on him. If anything, I pin it probably more on Cam York, but this is a team that has significantly outscored the opposition, and Travis Sanheim has gotten outscored at 5-on-5 when he's on the ice. So that gives me a little bit of pause to call him the MVP, because how can you be the MVP when your team is losing the goal battle when you're out there? I would probably lean towards Konechny because I think he's been consistently stellar, and he's been such a goal-scoring threat. He's been their most consistent offensive weapon. But you could argue Sanheim, you could argue Couturier, just because of the importance of all three situations,
the minutes
being down the
taking,
middle, and the fact that he pushes everybody else down the lineup, makes everybody else's job a little bit easier. So I think you could argue Couturier. I think I would go Konechny, but I think you could even argue Hart, even though he missed the time, because when he's been in, he's been good. There are options. I personally would go Konechny, but I don't think it's a slam dunk.
I think it's a good race between the Travi.
The Travi. We love the Travi.
We do. It's so much fun to say. I would go Sanheim, but I'm glad you brought up Konechny. Last game, the Rangers game on Black Friday. Yeah, yesterday. Jeez. Wow. It feels like it was 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Those 1 o'clock puck drops.
They just mess with our heads.
They barely exist to me.
Yeah, exactly.
But you tweeted during that game, you thought he was fighting it a little bit. He was just, I wouldn't say struggling. Like, his level of play was not struggling, but his execution was.
I would agree with that.
How do you think he bounced back tonight?
I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was his best. I thought, honestly, I thought most of the Flyers players were at least fine. There were very few, like even Ryan Poehling, who I thought had moments where it was very clear that he just had no idea what to do. Like, he did the hard part of getting the puck in the zone and then had no idea what to do next. I still thought he was fine.
Yeah.
I didn't think
he still outskated a bunch of guys.
He still did a lot of stuff, and that was cool. It's just that you were reminded why they need a better center in the top 9 than Ryan Poehling, who to me is a 4C. But I thought pretty much everybody on the team was fine, at least. Some guys were better than fine, but there really wasn't anybody that I watched that I thought was bad. That the Flyers just generally as a team outplay the Islanders, and it's nice that they got rewarded, because I thought for sure once that went into a shootout that there was no way they were beating Sorokin, because yet again he was fantastic.
I guess that's where we have to take it to the ending here. I mentioned Morgan Frost gets to go third. We did see before that Couturier get a chance at the shootout, and he did not take my advice of altering the move. He still went in.
Same exact move.
He tried the backhand, and then he tried to spin around and get to the forehand. I believe trying to tuck it back might be the move to build off of this. But then
that's the wrinkle you got to add.
It's the wrinkle that you need just to keep him guessing a little bit. But then we see, after the top 3 go, the man with 1 goal gets an opportunity, and now his goal total, while it remains on 1, does get credited with a game winner. I believe that's how the statistics work.
It's 2 goals in our hearts, Bill. 2 goals in our hearts.
The statistic works. You don't get credited for a goal, but you do get credited with a game winner,
That's a look
which
into
is
that.
very fun.
That is fun.
Do you think this could be a catalyst to more? Because I thought this after the first goal, like, okay, and now the floodgates open, because he'd been creating so much. It just felt like he needed 1. We did not see that, at least immediately. Now he gets the shootout goal. It's a winner. It's against the best goalie in hockey. Do you think now we start to see the version of Tyson Foerster we thought we were going to get when we were talking about him making this team in camp?
Maybe. I mean, I think that he's been playing fine. It's just he hasn't been scoring. And hey, if this is what gets him back going and back feeling confident in his shot, just makes him feel essentially like he's the guy who the Flyers thought they were drafting. Because I think the Flyers always view Tyson Foerster as someone who was underrated in terms of the other things in his game. Like, he wasn't just a shooter. But the hard truth is that without that shot, he's not a first-round pick.
No.
Like, he's just not. He's not a guy you're taking in round 1. He's maybe a guy you're taking in round 4, especially given the fact that he wasn't a good skater. He's still not a great skater, but he was a legitimately bad skater when they drafted him. So if this allows him to just feel a little bit better about himself and maybe let a few more rip on the power play and trust that he's going to hit the net rather than just shoot it 10 feet wide, that would be great, because I think there's more there. I think the Flyers believe there's more there. It's just a matter of him actually finishing on these chances. There were a couple during the game where he was definitely looking skyward, like, am I ever going to freaking score? Now, granted, a lot of that is because you're against Sorokin, who's one of the best goalies in the world.
We were all doing that tonight.
Exactly. I mean, it wasn't just Forster, but I think look, this can't hurt. I don't know if it'll help, but it certainly can't hurt that he's got a game winner to his credit, even if it came in a shootout.
What'd you make of that decision?
What, to play him, to use him?
I don't know if it's still this way, but I know when the shootout started, you had to name your 3 before the game. And then
I
it was
think
like,
that's still the rule,
and
yeah.
then from there it was choose whoever.
Yeah, you just like grab somebody. Hey,
Like,
you good?
Like, I remember it was Stevens. It was John Stevens who was like in Drew's emergency call up. It's like, well, we're in Ottawa. I put him on the list. I figured why not. And he didn't score, but it was like you gave him the shot. And you had to pick it pre-game.
Right.
Like, nobody has beaten this goalie basically in 2 days. You just got shut out by him for 65 minutes. He just dominated you. He just dominated you on Wednesday. John Tortorella really believes in this guy.
Really
that's
does.
what that shows me. Like, we could have taken anyone, someone who's had more success recently. Chance to win the game, puck on his stick. We like Tyson Forster, even though he has 1 goal.
That's a really good point, and I think you're right. I think it does show just how much faith John Tortorella has in Tyson Forster, just how much he likes Tyson Forster. And look, it can't hurt, because we're seeing what happens when John Tortorella doesn't like a guy. He gets in half the games, even though he led the team in scoring for the final 2/3 of the previous season. So it's certainly a good thing that John Tortorella likes Tyson Forster, because I believe in Tyson Forster. I think Tyson Forster can be not a star, but I think he can be a solid contributor for the Flyers in the future. He's certainly young enough to fit the timeline, so I'm happy that Tyson Forster doesn't have to face an uphill battle with the coach, who's a key part of deciding who's going to be part of this. That makes me happy, because I want them to find a way to make it work with Tyson Forster, and clearly John Tortorella is on board with that goal.
I'm not even saying it's wrong, because you brought in a guy to do a job. John Tortorella, at least a large portion of his job is tell us who has it and who doesn't.
Yeah.
It is funny, though, that like one of the prerequisites is, does the coach just like this dude? Yeah, like, and it is nice that, like, okay, he doesn't have that uphill battle. At least he doesn't have, playing in the NHL, I'm told, kind of difficult.
Yeah,
it's
not
hard
easy.
to do.
Not the easiest thing in the world.
At least he doesn't have this other thing like Morgan Frost does. And I'm like looking up, there's at New Wave Cafe right now. And thank you very much to everyone here at New Wave.
Thanks so much, everyone.
The atmosphere, tremendous. Thanks to everyone who showed out, everyone who's watching us live still. But they have all these like old Philly Sports Illustrateds on the walls and everything. And I just looked up and I saw the Flying High, and I realized now it's Jeff Garcia. But I looked up and I was like, when was Sam Bradford so good that he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated?
Oh, my God.
And that made my mind jog when you mentioned the Morgan Frost, the 55 games. Is that going to be a joke the way like Sam Bradford 10 of 10 in the preseason? Ooh. Like, is that where this is ultimately going to end up with Morgan Frost?
I mean, it might. It really might. God, this whole Morgan Frost thing, like,
I don't want to talk about it anymore, but it's interesting.
I am at the point where, like, I am just so tired of it. Like, I just want them to trade him.
Yes.
Just because I want him to get a shot somewhere, and I just more and more think it's never going to happen here.
Oh, I know for a fact it's not going to happen here. I just think about like those 55 games, and we're going to reference them forever. It's like we saw something, but
guess who didn't?
The only guy whose opinion matters in this entire organization.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know how much more we even have on this game specifically, but looking at the whole of what they've done, what was this, 20 or 21 tonight that they've played?
21, I believe.
This was game 21,
Game 21.
so we are over the 25% mark of the season.
Right.
Who still needs to really step up to show that they deserve the look for the last 3 quarters of the season? Like, who is in the lineup, but you're like, I don't know if there's really earned their ice time to this point?
That's an interesting question. I mean, like, I think Noah Cates needs to show more, but I think he's shown enough. Like, I don't want him scratched. I just want more from him. I want to see more. Hopefully tonight was the start of something where he looks more effective in the offensive zone, I hope. Beyond him, look, I know the Flyers really like what they've seen. I think Ryan Poehling, like, if he's going to stay in the top 9, he better start doing some stuff with the puck that isn't getting a primary assist on a shot from behind the other net.
190-foot goal.
Yeah, like let's not get overboard here. I think he's a fourth-line center, and if he's going to prove that he's not a fourth-line center, I want to see him do more things with the puck to show me that. Beyond those two, though, like, you go through the lineup, I would like to see maybe a little bit more from Cam York, but again, I don't think he should be scratched. I just think that, hey,
no, he has to play.
Maybe you're thinking maybe don't give him 20 minutes a night if he doesn't show a little bit more over the next few weeks. Maybe. But no, I think one of the reasons why the Flyers are exceeding expectations is because there's very few guys on the team that are not exceeding expectations. There's very few guys that are being dragged along. I think this is a team where there aren't many passengers right now.
If just building off of the Cam York idea, because this just made me wonder, this conversation we might have had a week or two ago, say they were to bump Cam York down, not play him 20-plus minutes a night, what becomes of the Sanheim X pairing? Like, who else, who do they play with him? Do we ultimately see him move back to the left? Because the obvious answer is Sean Walker.
Right.
Could they go potentially with what I want to see, having a righty on the left and a lefty on the right, make a power play D pair out of Walker and Sanheim? How does that play out if Cam York ultimately gets bumped down a bit?
It's an interesting question. I would say I don't think they have interest right now in moving Sanheim off the right. I think they like him there.
Nor do I.
So then it gets tougher because if you're not going to play Cam York, like, look, Mark Stahl is not a top pair defenseman. Nick Seeler is not a top pair defenseman. The closest thing you have to a top pair defenseman, aside from Travis Sanheim and maybe Cam York, because at least he can take the minutes, sort of, is Sean Walker. But to do that, you'd have to either play him on his offside in addition to having Sanheim on his offside, or move Sanheim over to the left. Maybe they'll try both. Maybe they'll experiment a little bit. You never know.
We have talked in the past, like, just trying to nail down John Tortorella.
We're at 50 minutes, Bill.
We're at 50 minutes.
Yep, so we're getting close to the end.
I know we don't have ad reads. That was your last message to me. There were only 4 days on the traffic log this week, so I took that as when we're live at New Wave, I'm not doing any.
Okay, cool.
And so we're at 50 minutes, so I don't have to vamp for too much longer.
Love it.
That's outstanding. I totally forget what I was going to say, though. What were we talking about? Something with Sean Walker?
Yeah, we're talking about the pairings, lefty, righty.
Yes.
What they do if they bump Cam York down the lineup in the future.
Yeah.
But again, like, I don't think Cam York's been bad.
No, I don't.
I just would like to see a little bit more from him.
And
I would
I
also
don't-
like to see him on the power play, which is low key. Like, as angry as people are getting about the Morgan Frost thing, it is inexplicable to me why they are not using Cam York on the power play.
Sean Walker, very good thus far.
Yeah, he's been real good.
He is not good on the power play.
He's not a good power play guy.
This is not a thing that's really in his repertoire.
It's really
but,
not.
Like, I don't foresee, as much as I think a Walker-Sanheim pairing would be fun. Like, these are your two best defensemen. I don't know what you have if those two are together for the other half of the game.
That's really
like, your
true.
other two pairs, I really don't know what they are.
Yeah.
But I'd be very interested in seeing more, like less Cam York at 5-on-5, more Cam York on the power play. Like we've talked, maybe his power play numbers with the U.S. development team a little inflated because he was with basically the entire NHL All-Star team at that time.
Like Trevor Seegers, Cole Caulfield, everybody.
Basically, Team USA at the next Olympics.
Yeah.
But like what do they have to lose at the? Because the power play is fucking horrendous.
It's real bad. Yeah, I think my view of Cam York on the power play is similar to my view of Morgan Frost, where I am skeptical that Cam York will ever be a great power play quarterback, great power play option. But why not find out?
But neither is anyone else on this team.
Why not find out? Like, give him the year to try to learn. And if he can't learn, if it turns out he just can't do it, and it looks like he's another Provorov where he's just not good on the power play, at least then you know, and you can go into this draft saying to yourself, okay, in addition to getting a number one defenseman, maybe in the second round, we got to be looking for a Shane Gostisbehere type who can be our third pair defenseman who runs the power play.
If only they had a Shane Gostisbehere type.
If only.
If only maybe they didn't trade a Shane Gostisbehere type away for literally nothing.
Even worse than nothing. They had to trade
a pick to get rid of him. For him. All right. I don't have anything else. Do you?
I think we had a good post-game show.
I enjoyed this post-game. I very much enjoyed getting to do this at New Wave Cafe. Everyone here was outstanding. Plenty of Guinness on tap. Big thumbs up for that.
Hopefully will not be the last time we do a watch party. Hopefully not the last time we do a watch party here. But want to send a shout out to everyone who came out to the watch party. Very, very thankful to everybody who came out. Had good conversations with a lot of new people. Shout out to Ethan and Cam, who we spoke with during the entirety of the third period. Great conversation, great hockey convo. But seriously, everybody that came out, thanks so much, and thanks so much to New Wave for hosting us and having us for the course of the entire game. That ended up being a longer game than any of us expected it was going to be.
It was as long of a game as you can basically possibly have.
Yes.
And that was it. But thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. That'll do it for us. For Charlie O'Connor, my name is Bill Matz. Happy Thanksgiving, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.